Pope Leo XIV refused to live in the papal apartments. And no, it wasn't out of humility. Behind that decision was a coded message, a legacy play, and a quiet war within the Vatican walls. While the world assumed he was just another traditionalist, insiders knew something else. Leo XIV was rewriting the rules under everyone's nose. Most people remember him for his stern theology or the revival of Latin Mass, but few realized the man was a strategist, a scholar with secrets, a pope with pressure points. From underground negotiations with the East to ghostwriting fiery theological essays, Pope Leo XIV left behind a trail that's only now being uncovered. You've heard the headlines, but you haven't heard the story. These are 5 things you didn't know about Pope Leo XIV, and once you do, you'll never see his papacy the same way again. Pope Leo XIV wasn't just a pope, he was a moment. Elected during one of the most ideologically divided periods in modern church history, his name alone sent shockwaves. Leo, a title that hadn't echoed from the Vatican balcony in over a century. But his papacy was more than just symbolism. Leo XIV stepped into power, not as a reformer or a radical, but as something rarer, a calculated guardian of tradition with an eye on strategy. He didn't shout to the crowd. He spoke to history, and every decision from the language of the liturgy to the people he surrounded himself with was part of a larger, quiet war for the soul of Catholicism. In the chaos of modern faith, Leo XIV became a paradox, rigid yet deeply intentional, publicly stern, privately thoughtful, revered and resisted in equal measure. But underneath the formal vestments lay 5 lesser-known facts that tell us who he really was. When Pope Leo XIV stepped into power, he wasn't inheriting peace. He was walking into a storm. The Catholic Church was fractured. On one side, progressives were pushing for modernization, female leadership roles, same-sex blessings, more local autonomy for bishops. On the other, traditionalists were demanding a return to structure, clarity, and spiritual authority that had eroded through decades of controversy and compromise. But the challenge wasn't just theological, it was institutional. Trust in church leadership had hit historic lows. Young people were leaving in droves. Scandals, both old and emerging, continued to erode credibility. The center was collapsing. Rome no longer had the gravity it once did. And Leo XIV? He didn't arrive with flowery speeches. He arrived with a map and a scalpel. He had to choose: appease the restless majority or reinforce the fading foundation. The church wasn't just divided, it was destabilized. His papacy would be judged not by popularity, but by the weight of his decisions. Behind the public homilies were quiet meetings. Behind the rituals, a realignment. Leo XIV faced not one challenge, but a series of fires he would have to fight with ancient tools and a modern sense of urgency. 1. He held secret negotiations with Orthodox leaders before he was even elected. Years before ascending to the papacy, Cardinal Giovanni Battista Leone was already planting seeds for unity. In discreet gatherings held in Cyprus, Geneva, and even a monastery in Mount Athos, he met with high-ranking Orthodox bishops to draft theological common ground. The goal wasn't full communion, but a framework, shared Eucharistic understanding, mutual recognition of holy orders. These weren't press-friendly events. They were done quietly, intentionally, because even whispers of reunification could trigger backlash. Many Vatican insiders believe these meetings helped pave the way for the surprising warmth between Eastern and Western churches during his reign. 2. His grandfather fought in the anti-fascist resistance and shaped his worldview. Leone's moral compass wasn't forged in seminary halls. It was born in stories passed down from his grandfather, a resistance courier during Mussolini's regime. He smuggled messages through mountains, protected Jewish families, and refused to pledge loyalty to the fascist state. Leone would later say it was this example, not church law, that taught him real leadership is about risk, conviction, and refusing to bow to power when power loses its soul. 3. He quietly dismantled a progressive theological movement, without scandal or spectacle. In the early years of his papacy, Leo XIV learned about a rising network of European theologians pushing for a major shift in Catholic moral teaching. They planned a high-profile conference meant to pressure the Vatican into changing doctrine on sexuality, gender roles, and priesthood. Instead of going public, Leo made 3 calls, one to the seminary hosting it, one to the financial backers, one to the publication covering it. Within 2 weeks, the conference vanished from the calendar. No public letters, no condemnations, just silence. And beneath it, a loud message, not under this pope. 4. He wrote under a pseudonym to influence debates he could not join. As cardinal, and even after becoming pope, Leo XIV contributed to theological journals under the pen name Vocatus Sapientia. His writings challenged secular theology, called for liturgical renewal, and rebuked what he called pastoral relativism. He couldn't risk revealing authorship. It would have sparked international media storms. But scholars eventually linked the writing style, biblical references, and footnotes directly to him. These articles laid the groundwork for many of his eventual reforms, well before he had the authority to make them. 5. His papal coat of arms included a hidden tribute to persecuted priests. To the casual eye, his coat of arms was nothing special, but positioned above the traditional keys were 5 stars, not randomly placed, but forming the Southern Cross. This constellation had been etched on hidden altars in South America, Southeast Asia, and parts of Eastern Europe, places where priests had to celebrate Mass underground during persecution. Leo never explained it, but insiders say it was his way of honoring those who served in silence, who kept the faith alive when Rome couldn't reach them. Each of these 5 facts reveals a truth. Pope Leo XIV wasn't a reactionary figure. He was a layered strategist, a man who played the long game. While others debated in the spotlight, he was changing the board entirely, one quiet move at a time. The defining moment of Pope Leo XIV's papacy came not with a proclamation, but with a single Mass. On Pentecost Sunday in the heart of St. Peter's Basilica, he reinstated the Tridentine Latin Mass as the universal standard for all papal liturgies. The decision wasn't just liturgical, it was a thunderclap. Latin chants rose through the dome, vestments shimmered with pre-Vatican II formality. It was a scene pulled straight from centuries past, but it wasn't nostalgia, it was a message. Critics saw it as regression. Supporters called it restoration. But what no one denied was the scale of the move. This wasn't about language, it was about legacy, authority, and reclaiming the narrative. In that moment, Leo XIV declared, "The Church is not a mirror of the times. It's a guardian of something timeless. And it wasn't done to provoke, it was done to remind." A generation growing up with blurred lines saw, maybe for the first time, where one ended and another began. That Mass wasn't just a service. It was a signal, one that still echoes across cathedrals and conversations worldwide. Pope Leo XIV may be remembered for his doctrine, his discipline, and his dramatic liturgical reforms. But beneath all that was a man far more layered than most realize. A strategist shaped by resistance fighters, a scholar who wrote in secret, a diplomat who dared to negotiate with centuries of division. He didn't court attention, he courted legacy. And in doing so, he left behind a papacy that defied modern categories. Neither progressive nor reactionary, neither aloof nor populist. Just deliberate, sharp, unapologetically rooted. The 5 things we uncovered today aren't just trivia. They're keys. They unlock the real reasons behind his decisions and the storylines still unfolding because of them. Because Leo XIV didn't just want to lead the Church, he wanted to recalibrate it, quietly, precisely, permanently. And if history is paying attention, it just might say he did. Now that you know the secrets behind the man in white, I want to hear from you. What surprised you most about Pope Leo XIV? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's talk about the popes behind the headlines. And if you're fascinated by the hidden stories of church leaders, check out our next video, The Most Controversial Decisions Made by Modern Popes. Trust me, it's one you won't want to miss. Hit like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss a moment where history whispers, and sometimes roars,